Welcome to the Coach Dave Love Podcast with NBA shooting coach Dave Love and your host, Matt Robertson. Exploring the cutting edge of evidence-based shooting development in basketball today. From shooting form to skill acquisition to shot metrics. This is the Coach Dave Love Podcast.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love Podcast. I am your host, Matt Robertson, and with me, as always, NBA shooting coach Dave Love. Dave, what's going on?
Not so much, Maddie. I want to know, have we talked music? Like, have we done any music conversation? I can't remember what have been podcast conversations, what have been real life conversations.
We sat poolside at a place in Vegas and talked about overrated, underrated, properly rated musicians. And
Okay.
that's the most music talk that we had. And I said a thing in that moment that made you get angry and would definitely make the internet get angry. So we're not going to rehash that.
Oh, I in that conversation, I've said a couple of things that my wife is furious about. Number one, that I think Prince is an overrated artist. That I'm not saying he's not good, but we've revered him, and I'm like, good artist. I can't put him in the category of Michael Jackson. And then we almost give Prince more respect than MJ for some reasons that maybe we can justify. But
So Prince, cultural phenomenon, from a musical standpoint, incredible musician, which is a different vein of things. And I think the cool factor can never be understated. Like, there's so many stories about one of the SNL anniversary parties or whatever, and everybody is there. And he's the coolest person in the room. He's the coolest person in the room.
That's great. Now you're Bill Murray.
Does
that make Bill Murray the greatest actor of all time? The fact that he always goes to like these college parties just because he was invited while sitting in a bar alone, like all those stories. Those are awesome stories too. Does he deserve an Academy Award because of it? No.
Caddyshack, heck of a film.
Really great. It's a
acting.
film. It's not a movie. Yeah,
It's an art house flick.
So what's your favorite song right now? Are you a music guy? Like,
I do love music. So kind of have three different veins that I listen to. And one is golf course music, which ends up being a lot of like Van Morrison, sort of like folky Irish rock somewhere in there. In my personal life, I love like a John Mayer, that kind of like easy listening vein. And then at the gym, I like, generic hip hop, whatever's on the go in the moment. That kind of thing. What's your scene?
Thank you for sharing that. Now, will you answer the question I asked? Which I do all the time. What's your favorite song right now, Matt?
There's a new James Bay song called Up All Night that gets me grooving, and so maybe that's my favorite song right now.
Okay, I'll go through these phases where like a song will just grab me and I'll sort of obsess about the song, and I haven't had one of those in a long time, but I'm going to go Water by Raw Raw Riot. Yeah.
Give me a genre.
I don't know your song either.
Give me a genre feel.
Sort of a alt rock, poppy alt rock, but this is like our family would call this a melancholy bop. Like it's catchy, but it's not like upbeat catchy. It's like a Billie Eilish kind of catchy.
Yeah, all American. No, I had a great reference and it's gone. Yep, no, all good. Billie Eilish,
Melancholy bops.
Olivia Rodrigo, Driver's License, Melancholy Bop. That song.
Yeah, I have an
Slaps.
ongoing joke about Olivia Rodrigo that there's a Camilla somebody that my daughter's reference.
Camilla
Cabello?
Cabello?
Cabello? I think
Sure.
it's Cabello. And so I just flip their first names and last names as though I'm an old man, I can't keep them straight sort of joke on myself. And so it's Camila Rodrigo and Olivia Cabello.
So,
and,
real quick story, and I feel like we have a 50-50 shot of the listeners either knowing that we chat and just fast forwarding the first 8 minutes and like maybe enjoying the chatter. Olivia Rodrigo driver's license, my introduction to this, was working in Cape Breton, which is about 5 hours away. And if you don't know where that is, it's about as far as you can go in mainland Canada without being in the ocean. Two of my work colleagues, who are these masculine hockey men, were driving for 2 hours to get to a hospital. And one of them puts the song on, and he's like, buddy, this song slaps. And we listened to it once, and I was like, yeah, that's okay. He's like, no, bro, again. So we listened to it a second time, and I was like, oh yeah, it hit. And then the third time we listened to it, bro, again. And then he gets to the build, and I'm like, okay, I'm all in at this point. But just like the person doing the recommending, it made it all worth it for me.
That song never grabbed me the way it grabbed the rest of the. I can't use the word zeitgeist in this context. Like it didn't grab the zeitgeist, or it was in the zeitgeist.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
Yeah, okay, but it didn't grab me. Anyways,
didn't grab you.
I feel like we need to move on. I want to talk. We've done a few theoretical podcasts in a row now. I want this one to get practical because I feel like we're now at the beginning of a lot of youth seasons around the world, like these 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old practices with like the people. A lot of kids gain their introduction to the game or have been getting their introduction for a couple of years, but they're not necessarily high level. I want to focus on what would we do, how can we help those coaches as they go through this season, but then also say, like, even though you might be a high school coach, you might be a college coach, you might be a pro coach, I think there's going to be stuff in there that in this episode that you can pull out as well.
I was going to say, Coach, so in my kind of fewer years of experience than you have, I have a lot of youth coaching experience, but currently am the assistant coach of a university level team. When I saw that's what you wanted to talk about, I was like, man, I know there's always translatable stuff, so don't disappoint me in the gang. I know there's translatable stuff here. I love it.
Yeah, perfect. So let's work under sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Like let's identify what I'm picturing as sort of the template for this podcast, and then you adjust given your particular situation. So I'm going to be imagining like 1 90-minute practice a week where you've got 1 or 2 coaches and 10 or 12 players of varying skill levels with all the habits that need to be worked on under the sun. You might not be the most experienced coach, and especially around coaching shooting, and the players aren't particularly experienced as well. Like, that's kind of what I'm going to be picturing here. All right, you with me?
Absolutely.
All right, so challenges. Like, this to me is probably one of the hardest jobs in basketball. Like, I always joke when I do a coaches clinic for coaches at this level that my job is way easier than their job. Like, I've got 24-hour access to a gym that has as many rims as we have players. We have probably twice the number of coaches as we do players that are happy to just be rebounders and defenders and passers in drills. And so, like, my job, and I've got mature players who are typically motivated to get a lot better. My job is way easier than this coach who's like got a 9-to-5 job, and they're coming in to coach their sons or daughters' team. And 4 of the players have been playing basketball for years. 2 of them are brand new. One is there because his parents told him to be there. Like, this job is impossible. But I think if I'm to put a bow on what we're going to be talking about, is the bow is going to be, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't go into this saying, I'm going to turn all 12 kids into Steph Curry by the end of the season. No, you're not. And that's fine. Don't set that as your goal. Like, just come into it with saying, like, we're going to get everybody a little bit better at one thing, and then identify like the one or two people that I can actually make a little bit more of an impact with.
You've said previously that, especially in the youth ranks, like fun is the number one piece, because if they lose a love or develop a hatred for basketball or a dislike for basketball at a young age, the odds of retaining that player throughout the future and giving them an opportunity to get better is probably very low. So
Right.
Fun, number one priority. And then if we can get a little better at one or two things, that's also, A1 kudos to gang, right?
Yeah. Fall out of love with the idea of players need to grind. Like the more that a drill is boring, the more of effective it is. Like that, in a way, that was a little bit of my mindset 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And especially the younger the group that you have, emphasize fun. Now, we can teach, but if they're in a U10 or a U12 environment, then make the drills as enjoyable as they can. And the nice thing is, the best way to make a drill more enjoyable is make it more game-like. And that's also going to help the transfer to the game. So we're going to go through. We're going to talk about. We'll start with like the key challenges, things to avoid, things to focus on, practical strategies for the practice, and then seasonal and long-term goals. So, where do you want to start?
I would love to start with key challenges. You just read out our bibliography is the word that came to mind. Obviously, that's not the right one. Our list of demands here, as Saul Williams would say. Give us the key challenges, Dave. What are the key challenges? I have a small child.
Let's acknowledge you have limited time and you have variable skill levels at your practice. And so you are going to have next to no opportunity to individualize your teaching, and shooting is going to be highly individualized. Like, each player will have probably they'll definitely have varying levels of proficiency. Like, you'll have some people that are pretty good for their age and some that are terrible for their age, and you will definitely have a variety of different bad habits. So how do you zone in on 12 different bad habits in a group environment? It's impossible. So don't. And we're going to give you some solutions on how to attack this instead. Sorry, I'm just reading my notes here. Adjusting expectations and methods to fit the youth level, not the professional or coaches level, or college level. So when you have a little bit more time and more resources, you can periodize a little bit more. You can do different kinds of drills, more individualized drills. You don't necessarily have that opportunity when it's 2 coaches and 12 players in a gym once a week. So we're going to get everybody involved as much as we possibly can, and on habits that apply to as many people as possible.
Can you dig into the adjusting methods just a dash? Or I don't want to step on I know that we have things later in the pod that you want to talk about, but adjusting expectations and methods to fit the youth level, is that logistically like lower the hoop, lower the like smaller basketballs, or is that the type of stuff that you're doing?
I love the idea of lowering the hoops and smaller basketballs, especially at like sort of that 12-year-old. Hopefully your league is doing that. You probably don't have that ability if the league hasn't mandated. But absolutely, I love that. What I'm picturing a little bit more. So what you've said is true, But where I was going with that is the I want to avoid like these form shooting drills. So, and we'll get into this a little bit more. You don't have the time to really break a shot down when you've got 15 minutes a week to work on shooting. So don't spend the first week doing stationary form shooting with your hand behind your back, because a bunch of kids probably hated it. Most probably weren't listening. Most aren't going to apply. Like, you're wasting your time if you're doing that. But we'll give you some ideas on what you can do that might be similar, but it's not going to be as like, we're breaking this down, like we're getting down to the details. No, youth, get down to the broad strokes. So that's more what I mean.
Gotcha. Don't travel. Here is how you bounce the basketball in a straight line while moving quickly. Get it up there.
Yeah, the shooting versions of that, especially at that U10, U12, maybe even U14 age group. Like, there, and we'll get into these, but there are some very broad things that those players, just about all of them, are not very good at. So start to win those battles.
Okay, Dave, let's do our first quick break before we get back to things to avoid.
Hey basketball fans, Coach Dave Love here with an exclusive offer just for you, my personalized video shot analysis. Imagine having an NBA shooting coach analyze your shooting form, just like I do for the pros. That's exactly what you'll get with my video shot analysis. Here's how it works. You send me a video of your shot and I'll break it down frame by frame. I'll pinpoint your strengths and identify the areas of improvement and give you tailored advice to take your shot to the next level. You'll receive a comprehensive analysis designed just for you. Whether you're a beginner or an aspiring pro, my feedback will help you shoot with confidence and precision. It isn't just feedback, it's a game changer. With my video shot analysis, you're not just practicing, you're evolving, and every single shot counts. Ready to transform your game? Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store to learn more and get started. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store and look for video shot analysis.
Okay, welcome back. Coach Dave, as always on this show, we do an after timeout after timeouts, and I'll put 24 up on the thought clock in my office, and it's your job to concisely deliver a look at what we talked about before the break.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about youth practices and what you can do as a youth coach. But even if you're a high-level coach, don't assume that this doesn't apply to you. There'll probably be a couple of little nuggets that you can pull out of this episode to help you get better. And there are challenges that come along with being a youth coach, but that might just mean you set smaller goals.
Love it. Super concise, Dave. You're getting better at these things.
Thank you, buddy.
Give us some things to avoid here when in these youth practices. What are a few things that we can kind of avoid?
Okay, so avoid the one-size-fits-all perfect form shooting practice. There is no one way to shoot the basketball. So don't get into your laundry list of, I want your feet here, 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 and here. I want you to hold the ball like this. I want the ball to move like this. I want your guide hand to come off the ball. I want you to lift where in that first practice, you're giving kids 21 different bullet points that you think go into the perfect shot. You don't have time this year to teach 12 players to do 21 different things. And 18 of those 21 probably don't apply. They'll be different 18, but they probably don't apply to each respective individual. Instead, focus on the 3 that do. Okay, so avoid the laundry list of like one size fits all. Avoid your own game only drills. So like game shots from game spots at game speed. Avoid only doing those. Now, do we want to work up to game shots from game spots to game speed? Absolutely. But we're never, if we only do those, we're never addressing habits. And then absolutely avoid long lines. Like, try to, even when you have 2 coaches, 12 players, try to avoid 12 players waiting in line for their 1 rep, and you've got 1 person working and 12 or 11 people waiting. Instead, say, okay, if we're going a drift to the corner, I've got a lineup of 12 people, and my assistant coach is just kind of watching. Well, then, can we get 6 of those people at the other end? We've just given them twice the number of reps, and then can I say, instead of the 6 players at my end all on the same side, I want 3 of you over here and 3 of you over there. But even better than that, put them in groups of 2 and just say, one of you is the passer and the other is the shooter. And now we've just increased our time on task dramatically by getting out of lineups. Lineups are the devil.
I was going to say, this one in particular, I feel like is a huge pet peeve of yours, even at the NBA level, in a number of places, right? Like this is a thing that is a plague everywhere.
Yeah. Our lines end up being shorter. We don't end up with doing, 12 players in a line for their one shot, unless it's for the $100 to make the half court shot at the end of practice. But yeah, we do a lot of the 3 people in a line to do a meaningless block practice. And so our goal is to refine and be better. Your goal at the youth level, just reduce it from a 12-person line to get it down to a 2-person line if you possibly can. So more time on task.
6x time on task. 6x time on task is an impressive increase when you only have a 90-minute window. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So David,
it's a lot more fun to shoot the basketball than it is to wait in line to shoot the basketball.
Are you talking about Disneyland? Is this like lines have become sort of a staple for fun things, and if we can speed those up, I would pay the extra $80 or whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah, fast pass that thing in your practice.
I like that a lot, and very pertinent for the youth. Okay, so instead of the always the game only drills and avoiding one size fits all, what are some things we can focus on that are going to have the benefit for the broadest strokes for the most players in your group?
Yeah, so don't have your laundry list of 12 or 21 different things that you need to do perfectly to shoot the basketball, because some of them probably won't apply to different players. Instead, where should you what habits should you focus your attention on? I want everybody from Steph Curry down to little Bobby and little Sally, we can all get better at balance. Okay, so we want to create, if you're doing shooting drills, I want you to do a lot of balance drills. Okay, I'd say just about every player U16 and under, and most players, even U18, U19, U20 and younger, can get better at reducing their guide hand. That almost, like, you look at any 10, 12-year-old, they shoot a 2-handed shot. We all did. That's where we start. They start to refine in sort of the U14, U16 range. Some refine really, really well. Most don't, and have still room that they can get out of the 80-20 two-handed shot and get closer to a 90-10 or 95-5. So that should be our goal. So improve balance, improve your guide hand, and then focus on giving players challenges to overcome. Give them little problems to solve, the kind of problems that occur in a game. So you're not spending your time constantly practicing the perfect shot. Perfect shots rarely happen in games. Instead, try to get as close to perfect as you can while solving a problem. Those are the three things that I really want you to focus on.
Dave, so for guide hand adjustment for these players, is this something where you would take a section of time and just work on this one thing, and then trying to get the players to apply it through the next section of challenges? Or how would you teach this practically? I know that we want to talk mostly broad strokes today, but if I'm looking at doing guide hand adjustments for 12 players at a time, like what's the most effective way to teach that?
I would encourage you for that one in particular, put a constraint on drills. And the restraint is that you have to remove your guide hand at the set point. And so this will go back to a couple of versions of contemporary form shooting or movement coordination form shooting drills that I do, ABC and slow to quick, where we slow down different parts of the shot. In ABC, we stop at the set point to make sure we're in control, and then remove the guide hand, shoot with one hand, or slow to quick, lift the ball slowly, slowing down the first part of the shot so we can find where the set point is, remove the guide hand, and shoot with one shot from there. And then I think we need to be aware of nonlinear learning and just not fall into the trap of hang around doing this one drill until they master the one drill, and then we'll move on 3 weeks later to the second drill, because you're going to be waiting too long. Instead, like as soon as you feel like you're making progress, add a little bit of difficulty, add a little bit of task representation, or task difficulty, or game representativeness to the drill. Make it a little bit more challenging. See how the players do. Make an adjustment or make an assessment of whether you think players are doing well. Continue on with the drill. Did you make it too hard? Do they need more time with the drill? Like they just need to kind of get used to it? Or did you add too much and you might need to simplify a little bit? So then in your next practice, you might have to kind of start at the same starting point, like simplify enough and then build up, and you might be able to build a little bit further. You've increased the level of difficulty, you've increased the level of game-likeness of the practice, and you've made progress. The next week, you might not have to go right back to what you thought was the beginning, and you'll probably be able to grow a little bit further. So you're just continually doing sort of that stock market move of it doesn't go up every day, but over the course of a season, we make progress. And that's that ABCD, ABCDE, ABCDEF, BCD, EF. Now I'm struggling. Like that's kind of the nonlinear. Don't do A. Okay, I think we're good at A now. Let's move on. B. We don't learn that way. Introduce challenges, and hopefully players can begin to solve them.
So I know we kind of stepped on the practical strategies for this, but I did want to be a little more specific with that guide hand item, because like you say, that is something that affects a majority of players. And so you can kind of work those strategies into your practice as a whole, as opposed to just being like, all right, Bobby, you're working on guide hand removal. And I can't remember who the other player you mentioned was, Sally.
Sally,
you're working on, you're out getting your elbow or whatever the thing is. So the first item you talked about was having better balance. Like, talk a little bit about creating those situations for players.
Okay, so in this situation, I would really encourage you, because you have a chance for this to be fun. I would really encourage you to get out of explicit teaching and get into implicit teaching and learning. So this is what I mean by create problems. Have the kids partner up and just say to one kid, I want you to put your hand on the hip and hand on the shoulder of the other of your partner. And the partner has the basketball, the partner is the shooter. The the person with the hand on hip and hand on shoulder is going to count down 3, 2, 1, and they're going to push in the opposite direction, push the player away from them. The shooter is going to jump in the direction that they're going to be pushing. So you're effectively creating space away from the defender. We now have a problem. There's a bunch of energy to control. And instead of teaching the players that, okay, in order to be balanced, you have to have your feet hip width apart and you want to have this athletic body posture. Yeah, those are all true. But you saying that doesn't accomplish anything in helping them really learn that. Instead, just put them in a position where they have the kind of problem that they need to solve and guide them towards solving it. So they push, and what's going to happen is probably 3 of the kids are going to struggle. They're going to have to take 6 steps to get their balance at the end, and they're going to be laughing while they do. Great, they're laughing, they're having fun. That is good. We want that. But then within that, you have to be able to say, are you allowed to take 6 steps in basketball? Obviously not. Well, that's a travel. Okay. So you had to do something illegal in order to stop this energy. Don't even answer, but I need you to solve that problem. When you get pushed, when there's a whole bunch of energy for you to stop, I need you to be able to land. And maybe in the beginning, I'll give you 2 steps. You get the legal number of steps to stop your energy. Show me what that looks like. And some kids won't push hard enough. I want within 10 reps of this drill, I want the kids pushing each other as hard as they can. And for the coach even to come in at times and for the coach to work up to them pushing as hard as they can. We can handle this as athletes. And we need to be able to handle it as basketball players, but we have to put them in positions to learn. And I've watched kids fall over on the first rep, travel on the second rep, solve the problem in 2 steps on the third, and by the 5th or 6th one, they're easily solving the problem in 1 step. Okay? 2 is great. 1 is a constraint that I'll put on the drill just to explore even harder. Like, can you get balance in 1? Your feet have to land both at the same time. That's the rule or the constraint on the drill. And kids enjoy this. And rather than me giving this boring lecture, they're figuring it out. Now, the important part is hopefully they've learned, but we just have to bring their attention to it. So that's, instead of me huddling up at the beginning and explaining the point of, Bobby, here's how you get balanced. You have your feet wide apart and you have your shoulders over top of your knees, and Bobby's tuning me out because he's bored. Let Bobby solve the problem, figure out how to solve the problem, circle them up at the end, and then say, okay, you guys teach me. What was the problem? I had a lot of energy to control. It was hard to get my balance. Good. How did you solve it? What kind of things? And now they feel like they're the superstar. And obviously, like, the tone that I'm taking right now would be the tone that I'd take with a much younger player. But I do this with pros too. What do you figure out? Like, what was, like, the words might be very, very similar. The tone is a little bit more mature, but the idea that let them solve the problem and let them tell you how they did it, and then reinforce it when they're right, or guide them towards something better if they're maybe missing the mark.
You called drills like this self-organization drills. And when I think about learning how to move in space and learning how to catch my balance, of course it's going to be so much better if they are figuring it out on their own, you know? I also imagine that the higher level players, so talking about things that are going to be useful for higher level coaches, kind of sticking through this episode. Obviously, the larger the players get, the heavier the pushes get, and the more difficult the balance problems become, right?
Yeah. And so, like, with 7 foot, 240 pound, right from the beginning, I'm pushing as hard as I can. Because I'm 6 foot and 180, 185 with puny forearms. I'm not a powerful dude, Matt. So I can push as hard as I can, but then I got to remind them, no, this is going to be you. This is basically the last step of a step back. This is the last step of a hard drift to the corner. You're going to be creating that energy. So I need you to create it as well. I need you to jump. I'll be pushing as well. And then with those guys, very quickly having to layer it by adding task complexity and game representativeness to it. Okay, add a dribble to it. Now we're adding a catch to it, and they've still got the same problems. Or start with your back to the basket, turn in the air. Don't lecture balance. Balance can be learned very, very quickly by just getting players off balance and asking them to figure it out.
Oh, I love that, Dave. Okay, let's take a quick break. We've gone here for a little stretch without it. We'll come back with more practical strategies for your practice right after this.
Hey there, basketball fans. I'm NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and I've got exciting news just for you. Introducing my exclusive, free basketball shooting newsletter. It's packed with insights and techniques straight from the hardwood. Have you ever wondered how NBA players improve their shots? Or how you could get to the next level, whether you're a college player, a coach, or a budding youth player? My newsletter brings all this and more directly to your inbox. Each edition is a deep dive into the world of basketball shooting. I'll share some of the tips and ideas that I use with my NBA clients, tailored for every level of the game. But wait, there's more. Subscribers receive exclusive monthly discounts on my online products. From training videos to personalized coaching sessions, you'll get it all for a fraction of the price. And the best part of all, it's absolutely free to join. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your game and join a community of passionate players and coaches from around the globe. Signing up is easy. Just visit CoachDaveLove.com.
Coach Dave, welcome back. This is an ATO, going to put 24 up on the thought clock. Talk about what we just talked about in the last segment.
I've never done this before. I'm going to put it back on you.
Oh,
you do the ATO. I'm handed this is Greg Popovich handing the clipboard to Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili and say, "Okay, you've got this timeout." What's the ATO, Matt?
Whoa. All right, you ready? Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
Count me in. Okay, so we're going to avoid a few things when looking at these kinds of practices. One size fits all shooting, looking for the perfect jump shots, not an ideal thing, and using game-only drills, so game shots, game spots, game speed, as the only shots we're getting up. Not great. When instead we can focus on broad stroke skills that stop doing that. Broad stroke skills that could benefit all players, like improving your balance, getting your hand off the ball properly, and using implicit learning to be able to do those things.
Wow, that was a very thorough ATO. Like,
not
I was
concise.
giving you the yeah. Yeah. Okay.
For the audio only listeners, Dave started giving me the countdown, and I panicked. So I ran out of gas.
Okay, take all that you said, and then if people only remembered one thing, what would be the one thing you would want them to remember from last segment?
Yeah,
I'll think of mine as well.
Broad strokes teaching, where teaching players balance in a way that is both fun and practical and effective, that requires you to do no actual teaching, is a super valuable thing.
Yeah. Create problems would be the one that I would want them to, like, instead of teaching them solutions, create the problem and guide them towards figuring it out. And I love the push drills and the lean drills for balance. Everybody can be working on balance. So we haven't spent a bunch of time on some practical solutions for the guide hand stuff. Do you want to go there?
Yeah, please. So you mentioned using constraints in the drills when I asked you a question earlier. Do you want to delve just a little deeper into that for us?
Yeah, and ultimately, like I said before, the two constraints or the constraint that I'll use in two different ways is remove your guide hand so that you can figure out, you force your shooting hand to figure out where it needs to be to get the ball to go straight. And I have an idea where that is, but it's better if I just tell you, take your guide hand off and shoot, and you tell me where it needs to be. So I'll have the kids stop, or the players stop at the set point to self-organize there, or I'll slow down the first part of the shooting motion to bring awareness to that set point where I think the shot actually begins. But then, like, these drills should not be done in a vacuum. Like, going back to what we've always kind of said, stop doing stationary form shooting. That's the habit you're working on. We're working on using the constraint of removing the guide hand to teach where the shooting hand needs to be in the movement that it needs to be made, or it needs to make. Put that into as much of a game context as you can. And so do that with movement at the very least. Just hop forward and do ABC. Hop sideways, do ABC or slow to quick. And like, just using ABC as the building awareness, and slow to quick as the bulk of the practice over the course of the youth season. I think you'll see some pretty dramatic improvements.
It kind of boils down everything that we talk about, or much of what we talk about every week. Using constraints in something that is as task representative as possible, but still creating a problem for them in a teaching environment. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
No problem. Dave, can you give us a couple more strategies to kind of some more practical things that we can use in our practices?
Yeah, just going back to what we talked about earlier, and I'll move through these pretty quickly. Avoid the group of 12 and everybody waiting in line. Get them into small groups. Ideally, get them into partners. And then the second thing would be incorporate defenders as much as you possibly can. And that doesn't necessarily mean live defense. That can just be like when we do push drill, we have a defender. The person that you're jumping away from, who's also simulating a bump or creating more energy, like that's a defender. And the defender, what do? They create challenges for us. And so I'll do little things like I'll do form shooting where the defender starts in front of the shooter, like neutral stance directly in front, and then the defender jumps a half step to either side. And as soon as the shooter reads where the defender is, the shooter has to go in the same direction, but has to get their feet outside the defender's feet. So the defender shades over here. I got to get outside them. I got to get separation from them, or teach them to say, like, okay, read where the defender is going. You go in the opposite direction and get as far away as you can. Now I'll give the defender, defender, you're allowed to go a half step to the side. Shooter, you're going the opposite direction to create space. Create as much energy as you can, because the defender, you can't move your feet, but you're allowed to reach. And shooter, if you only go a half step your way, that defender might be able to reach and strip the shot. If you can go as far as you can, you're going to be able to not have to worry about the defender, but you're going to have to be on better balance when you do it, because you're creating more energy. So
for the elite coach listener out there who's a college coach or MBA or a high-level high school coach or whatever, this is the kind of stuff that you stick around for. Dave, you just gave away a 4-part drill, or a 4 kind of scaffolded drill that I can take and adjust and add challenge to, that is engaging for both the offensive players trying to learn, and you're creating a different and more difficult problem for them in each step, and an activity that a defender can use to work on closing or shot challenging or whatever the item is that you're looking for them to focus on.
Can I give you even more?
Please.
Okay. So the defender is jumping to one side and the shooter has to go to the same side but get further away. Okay. Then, okay, we've got the challenge of movement, like stopping the movement. It's a balance drill. Anytime you're moving, it's a balance drill. But then what sorts of things become challenges in that environment greater than just getting your balance? Well, defenders are going to have hands in different places. And so you've got to be able to move the ball around their hands. You don't get to shoot the perfect shot. So stop doing those drills where here's the perfect shot, here's the perfect starting point of the drill. Those don't occur in a game. Instead, when that defender moves to the side, I want the defender to put their hands sort of eye level or waist level, in like between the shooter. So if the shooter were to if the defender puts their hand at waist level and the shooter is moving in the same direction and tries to go through with the ball at waist level, the ball hits the defender's hands. We've got to solve that problem. You've got to, if the hand's low, you've got to rip over top. If the hand's high, you've got to rip underneath. And then self-organize, get as close to that ideal starting point as you possibly can while being on balance and then while getting your guide hand off the ball. And like, this is that game representativeness. Like, stop teaching perfect shots. Perfect shots don't happen. Get close to perfect shots in hard situations.
If you're watching on YouTube, I've been smiling for the last like 40 seconds because all of this, I'm just like, yep, bank it, got it. Like, we're start practice next week for our college season, and just like such an easy, incredible progression to teach everything from balance to the variability and lifting motion that we talk about that make a game representative. Dave,
and what do we do instead? Even at the professional and the college level, what do we do? Spots. We're just like, hey, we're going to get shots up. And so stand here and shoot. And even at the pro level, it's, okay, groups of 3 and drift to the corner, shoot, then get back in line. What are we teaching? Nothing. We're repeating our same old habits and hope in a really easy environment and hoping we're going to get better in a hard environment. Like, we need to take a serious look at what we think practice looks like as a sport, and what we think good coaching is as a sport. So, anyways, I was starting to go down a little bit of a rant there.
No, listen, I'll get you the soapbox out anytime you want it. Dave, that's awesome. Okay, so we've hit 40 minutes. We still have a lot to cover. I'm going to give you the choice of where we're going to clip some. So if you want to just breeze through one of the 2 next sections, like, which one would you rather kind of give a little bit of time to, and then the other one?
I think I can do the goals really quickly.
Cool.
Should we take a little break and then come back and get into sort of the pathway, like how to use this over the course of a season?
Love it.
Hey there, basketball fans. Coach Dave Love here with an exciting opportunity to revolutionize your shooting game. Introducing my exclusive shot development systems: Pure Release, Consistency and Balance, and Fluidity and Arc. Each system is designed to target key aspects of your shooting technique, transforming you into a more effective player on the court. Pure Release focuses on perfecting your shot release. Consistency and Balance enhances your stability and accuracy, and Fluidity and Arc works on your ball path and trajectory of your shot. Find out the drills and progressions that I use with my NBA players to improve these important habits. Can't decide which one to choose? No worries, grab the bundle and get all 3 systems at a fantastic value. It's a complete package to elevate every part of your shooting game. And there's a special deal for all my podcast listeners. Use the promo code PODCAST20 at checkout to save 20% on any of the shot development systems. Don't miss this chance to train like the pros. Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store and take your first step towards shooting success. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store.
Coach, welcome back. As always, after a timeout, we have an ATO. I will not be performing this ATO. Tony Parker has given the clipboard back to Greg Popovich. Dave, please tell us what we talked about in the last segment.
What I really want people to get out of the last segment is the idea that form shooting should not be done in a perfect environment. We only do that to teach the feeling, but a lot of form shooting should be done by solving problems, and balance drills and ball path drills will be a great way to give them realistic problems to solve.
Got a decent look. The actual knowledge, important stuff. So really appreciate that. Okay, Coach Dave, talk a little bit about building a nonlinear development plan. So we talked about on a micro level, using kind of that nonlinear progression to build skills. Like, talk a little bit more about over the course, what does that look like for a season?
If you get any kind of an off season, like meaning like you meet early September for the first time for your first practice, but you don't play until early October for your first game, then I would spend that time exploring a little bit more around the optimal movement patterns. So I would do a little bit more of the less game representative form shooting, but I do it with high accountability to specific habits. Like if we're going to try and do details, do it in that preseason that you get. Now, most youth teams that I've kind of experienced, you're lucky if you get a 2-week to practice off season, or preseason. So that might not happen. In the early part of this season, into the mid part of the season, I want you to really transition into what are the problems that occur in games. Hopefully you've identified by this point the one habit that each player should be focusing on. I should have included that in the preseason. Your goal is to identify that one habit for each player. And then over the course of the season, create problem-solving drills for those players that they do, that as they improve their skills, the level of difficulty of the drills also increases throughout the season. And then as we get later into the season, that's when you can start to like give a little bit more individual attention to players who their habit well. They hopefully understand their habit. They've had some time to work on it, and you can really make some improvements in the 2 minutes before practice or the 2 minutes at the end of practice with a couple of people on an individual basis at that point.
You had talked about, I'm glad you said that last little bit at the end, because you've talked about previously making best use of all your time, especially when time is so limited. And it's something I think about a lot now when I see the little moments of stillness in the practice during water breaks. Of course, your guy needs their water, your girl needs their water. But if you can spend 3 minutes on one very specific little item for them that you can cue them to later in the practice or later in the week or the next week or whatever, awesome opportunity for that as well.
Yeah, I do that with pro players. I would coach would give water, and we just got in the habit of 2 free throws, then you go get water. And you're just forcing them to recall mentally and physically, like 2 shots. Do you remember? As we're walking over, I've already got the basketball in my hand. As we're walking over to the hoop, I'm asking a guided question of, okay, what are we trying to do here? What's important for you to remember? What are you? And then 2 shots. Okay, perfect. It took us 17 seconds. Go get your water now. And then hopefully, if you want to take it, hopefully then you've got another player and they've gone to get their water right away, and you've now got the basketball in your hand. Over 2 shots, calling them over and getting them to do the same thing. And just all those moments of recall stack them up over a season. They help.
Key to the forgetting curve. Playing golf, I think about that all the time after we've talked about this. And again, and so one of my hopes, slight little tangent, one of my hopes for this podcast is for coaches that you say something that challenges them or intrigues them or really calls to mind a very specific situation. And you keep coming back to that. I'm like, oh, I saw that thing again, and thinking about it, and like my driver's struggling, and what's the 3 things that I got to key in on? Like, it really brings it to life for me. And I don't have all that much time in the gym coaching as of yet. So this season. So appreciate you. Okay. Next section is seasonal and long-term goals. So this is a very macro look at your youth season.
I'm going to do this in 15 seconds if I can. Manage expectations. So don't try to turn everybody into Steph Curry or Caitlin Clark in one season. It's not going to happen. Don't try. Get better at one thing. And then stay patient and stay positive. It takes a long time to build a habit, and players will buy in a lot more when you're positive about helping, and not the like negative coaching. You gotta get better at this. It's like, hey, if we can improve at this, like, imagine what's possible. You're doing great. Like, don't worry about, like, everybody misses. Like, find the honest silver lining in as much of it as you possibly can, because that's the reality.
I can't understate the amount that having fun is so important, man. Like, I've been an assistant coach and a head coach for youth teams. And when things are not fun, it feels like a chore for me to be there as an assistant coach, and like, I know for the kids, it probably feels like a chore as well, because they're not having fun. Apologies to the head coach of my team that season. They probably know who they are if they're listening, but it's just like, if it's a drag for you to be there, it's probably a drag for the kids to be there. I think that's a pretty simple corollary.
Every once in a while, I'll have a player doing a drill, and it usually occurs when I've sort of empowered them. I've said, okay, you lead this. Like, you tell me when we're moving on, and they'll go and they'll do what I think is way too many reps of the same drill, and I'll eventually step in and say, like, I'm bored. Like, and if I'm bored, you're probably bored. Are you doing well with this? Yeah, I am. Good. Why didn't you move on? And sort of make it a teasing kind of conversation. But boredom is not a learning environment. So for the teacher or the learner.
Can't emphasize that piece more. And again, that also translates to further down the line. We have better capacity for grindy, boring drills when they're necessary at the higher levels with the more intense focus, but there's still, the grind is not always the best.
It let me do a Chris Oliver imitation here right now. And I would challenge you, are they really necessary? Like, I hear that, as soon as you said that, I heard Chris saying that in my head, because like, I romanticize that kind of practice too. And Chris is always in my head, like, I know you like that, but do you need to do that? Can you make it more game-like? Is that possible? And the answer is usually, yeah, I could have. I'm in my routine as a coach.
Coach Dave, couldn't have said it better myself. Let's jump towards the conclusion here.
Can we do I need to do hammer action? I feel like the push drill descriptions and everything else was like essentially what I would have done for hammer action.
So
do I need
let's reiterate just for a quick second the 2 practical things. So the push drill and the shooter drill with the defender moving to the side, adding game representativeness, variability, balance, all those things. Those are 2 very important things. Can you give me one other kind of practical item?
Take the push drill and just substitute out the word push and substitute in lean. So in pushing, I'm actively creating energy. And with the leaning drills, I'm going to try and sound really smart here. Store kinetic energy and then unleash it.
Really
I think
good.
that might actually apply.
Really, really good. I think you nailed it.
And play with it.
And play with it. I think there's so much value there. I think there's so much value there for individual development, for workouts, for your full practice, whatever it is. There's a lot there, Dave. So thank you for, again, giving a few more of your secret sauce ingredients to the people. The people appreciate it as the voice of the people.
Thank you. And thank you to the people. So
do you have anything else that you want to spend some time on, or do you kind of want to wrap things up here?
No, I feel like we've covered it, and we'll let the people go on with their day. So, where can people find you, Matty?
I have been very inactive on X, but I am at Coach Matty Rob on X and Twitter, and Matt Robertson on LinkedIn. Come, connect, and would love to chat. How about you, Coach Dave?
I'm in a planning stage for getting back to social media, and then revamping my newsletter. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Dave Love, and on the newsletter, go to coachdavelove.com. And there's boatloads of free information, and we're in the planning stages of giving even more. And then if you want to host a clinic, if you want to train with me in person, those are all possibilities. The newsletter is probably the best place to find all the information on that stuff.
Coach Dave, as always, you've been a delight. I hope the people learned as much as I did from you today. To all the listeners out there, thanks for sticking with us till the end, through the 7 minutes of chatter and then the 47 minutes of great information. We really appreciate your time. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, tell a friend. It all really helps. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Coach Dave Love Podcast. To stay up to date with our future episodes, please remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to sign up for Coach Love's free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com, and be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him at Coach Dave Love.